Hey folks, welcome on back. We're going to talk about casting here. That's our technical term for taking one type of data and treating it as another type. So you noticed here, we could say, hey, I want a double, and we'll call this my double number, and you can assign it the value of like 7. And we know 7 is an integer, but what happens here is smaller values can fit into larger values. So this is implicit casting. Implicit casting is happening. Casting is happening here, saying, okay, if it's smaller and you want to store it in something bigger, that's no problem. We'll implicitly do that for you. Not a problem here. What you can't do is you can't take an integer and say, I want my integer value and say, hey, I want 4.2 to be an integer, right? You can't go from bigger to smaller. It just doesn't work like that. And that's the whole reason when we had floats, we couldn't store a double in a float because it wouldn't fit. So you have this sort of path here. So a byte really can go into a short, which can go into an int, which can go into a long, which can go into a float, which can go into a double. And just sort of each of these can be implicitly cast. So a smaller type will implicitly cast into the larger type. Implicitly. Where's my? There we go. Thank you. I love that it does spell checking here. Right. So if you don't want implicit casting, if you want to explicitly cast something, we can say, well, hey Java, I really want this as an int. You put the type here in parentheses. So explicit casting is telling Java, please convert. Right? Please cast this value as an integer. And what you'd expect is you just lose a decimal place. Right? So it will take a double here and cast it as an integer so we can store it as an integer value. And you can do any sorts of conversions here as you want. And so what that lets you do here then, if you do want to have some sort of double for, I wanted the a decimal result here, and I wanted 5 divided by 2. Now, oh my goodness, decimal here. Neither of those is good. Or maybe I had some variables here. Maybe I was going to use, I wanted my integer value here divided by my favorite number. Right? Both of those are integers. And now you'll notice here when I started typing my favorite number, it's telling me my favorite, it tells me the type here, right, which is really nice. You can see it's an integer value. So if you want to get a double result, what you can do is say, hey, by the way, Java, please treat this thing as a double here. Right? So you can cast it, the variable here, in the arithmetic that we're doing to make sure we get our decimal result. So my integer value should be 4 divided by my favorite number. My favorite number is going to be 42, 52, 62, 63, 64, 63, 62. So it should be 4 divided by 62, right? And 4 divided by 62 is going to be pretty small. Let's see what we get here. That looks probably about right. 4 divided by 62, and we can even check here, right? Let's check Java's math. Let's do 4. Now, math doesn't work very well in the programmer calculator, so make sure you go back to something like 4 divided by 62. 0.6451. Yeah, that looks pretty accurate here then. Right, ends in 806. Right, ends in 806. I think Java did the math okay. So you can use that casting, explicit casting, not implicit casting, to make sure we get the correct results for values here. Or if you really do just, hey, I don't care what the decimal place was, we can get rid of it. So we can cast all sorts of types like that with the implicit or explicit casting. It's pretty cool. All right, folks, I'll see you in the next video.